Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge and I'm your host. I'm the author of 12 books, a CEO of 12 years, and the founder of a startup set on data privacy. Most importantly, an elite performance coach of over 18 years, having worked with athletes throughout Europe, the United States to Australia. Most excitingly, I am the world's leading scientist on coach and athlete performance, specifically behind how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. My work includes everything from mitigating injuries to conditioning behaviors that set a player up long term for the long game towards a top 10 tennis ranking. I'm behind theories from the optimal performance theory, optimal behavior for optimal performance, the barrier breaker, the rule of transference, to the golden rule. As has become custom, each episode we normally dive into one of my books and share additional insights and dig a little bit deeper. But today's episode is a special edition for the Australian Open that is currently underway. However, today's episode with new key insights plays its own role, like so many other episodes, in developing the player, parent to coach for that road ahead towards a top 10 tennis ranking. So, as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today. And look, I'm really looking forward to today's episode because our last episode, we really wrapped up days 1 and 2 of the Australian Open. And look, if you've been with us for some time now, that yes, these are bonus episodes, especially for the Australian Open. And since Beyond Top 10 Tennis has only been around now for about almost 8 months, this is the first chance we've had the opportunity to be live in a manner of speaking and really touch base directly on the Australian Open. So we're trying a different format in this respect to give you almost real time, as close as we can get, wrap-ups or insights, especially when we're looking at leveraging the data in our latest release. And if you are new, it's only been on the stands for the last 3 to 4 weeks, and that's our brand new title, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking. It is actually my 12th book to date, which is incredibly awesome, though it's definitely potentially my most specialist, most profound, because all of the work until now really has led up to this point. The good news for all of you listening out there is that it's really freed me up in a way to share even more since it has hit the stands. I can start sharing what's between the pages. So if you haven't already, I'd really encourage you to get your hands on it just to better, I think, understand where I'm coming from, where we're going specifically when we're looking at metrics, predictive analytics, etc. But also the What Is Your Game Missing series. So that is, we've touched on that in the previous episode. What is your game missing? What is your game missing now? And what is your game missing to win? Now, those 3 texts essentially represent every single WTA and ATP Tour player who has made the round of 16 at a Grand Slam over the last, I want to say, 6 years, and or has been based inside the top 10. And it really is quite an in-depth longitudinal analysis, but the most exciting part, it showcases how our analytics places these players to either ascend towards a top 10 tennis ranking or not, or why these players are hovering at their current ranking range, whether that's 50 in the world, 80 in the world, 20 in the world, and what's stopping them from becoming a barrier breaker, which of course is achieving a top 10 tennis ranking. I think some of the most notable players I've touched on previously is Swiatek. When she was around 80 in the world, she jumped on our radar in a manner of speaking, and we projected her to ascend towards a top 10 tennis ranking with more good things to come. And we all know what's happened since then, and that's roughly about 3 to 4 seasons ago. It could be maybe 5, just off the top of my head. I think the most exciting one at the moment is Alex de Minaur, and we do have a blog piece coming out on that later today, but more so because over the last roughly 5 seasons we've projected him, whether it's from top 50, top 30, top 20, to gradually, progressively ascend towards a top 10 tennis ranking. He did his time in the top 20 to inside the top 20, hovering in the teens, so it's really well deserved, and it just goes to show that these analytics aren't just over a season. We really look at the long game. If you're not familiar with that, head on over to AMA International and click on the long game, because it really explains a given trajectory, but also 10 years of play. So that is the title, I Am Your Tennis Coaching Guru, which is a bit of fun with all the lessons and planners in it, but how it really intersects with the body of work of what you need to do. So key technical inferences to apply, adopt into your game, technical patterns of play, etc. If you're looking at progressing towards that top 10 tennis ranking. So the work in and of itself is incredibly exciting, world first in and of itself, and I think my favorite statistic, or one of, is that 92% of coaches and players on the WTA and ATP Tour do not know this. 8% do know, and when we're looking at the top 10, 2% of those players each and every season will regress. There are a number of players on the WTA and ATP Tour that were inside the top 10 this time last year and who have regressed, just for example. And this is groundbreaking. Everything is backed by science. 150,000 plus inferences. It's incredible. I won't go into the nitty-gritty of that, because I think those of you who have been supporting us for some time now, you're really familiar with this. So if you are new, I want to encourage you to listen to our previous episodes just to I guess, better understand and unwrap what this is all about. So again, special edition, our last episode, we looked at days 1 and 2, which is essentially the first round. And since the first round of the Australian Open has been spread over that 3 to 4 days, today's episode, we're going to look at days 2 and 3, which includes the end, so the last first rounds, but also the first second round matches. It's a little bit confusing in that manner of speaking because of that. But I wanted to make sure that this was released in time, and we'll see how we go when we're looking at third round through to the fourth rounds, because obviously as that draw narrows down, I think we'll find a better rhythm, and I'm already really enjoying being able to share this with you. And I almost wish at the same time that we had a bit more time up our sleeves. But look, without, I think, diving any more deeper into that, I really wanted to dig into the matches. And look, let's start on the WTA side, so the women's tour. And look, we've had some really good results, but equally some surprises. Let's start with Pegula. I'm really interested to see how she goes this event. I think she's going to fly under the radar. Potentially is positioned to have her most successful Grand Slam to date. I think other players, namely Gorf, really take the American spotlight. And there are obviously others, a lot of up-and-comers in the US coming through. The Australian Open draw, I think, potentially has just as many or more Americans over Australians, which is very exciting, I think. I'm a little bit biased there, being based in Australia. But given Pegula's performance at the WTA finals, this is it's one to watch. I really want to look at her match later today and just to track her analytics. But from last season, it's really solid, and I feel as though she's finally been able to find her groove. So really, that level of maintenance that not only allows her and is allowing her to maintain that top 10 tennis ranking, but really solidify her place at the top of the game. And when we're looking at maintenance, those patterns of play, the levels of consistency, more specifically, it comes down to those metrics, which obviously are unwrapped in how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking, the What Is Your Game Missing series, even the text we've been focusing on up until today, which is the secrets to optimal coaching success, and even the one prior. Our first initial 50 episodes were based on the secrets to optimal performance success. And I think Pegula actually is an exceptional, underrated player in this respect. I think, granted, she is a little bit older. Granted that we've got a lot of newcomers in their teens and or early 20s taking the spotlight. But being a player in her mid to late 20s, this is actually, I think, that the prime of her career, because we really need to remember the likelihood of a teenager / early 20s player maintaining their peak for the next decade of play. Well, that's what they want. We want them, but it doesn't always happen. So we also need to remember our peak performances, more often than not, if we followed a set trajectory, is around our late 20s, early 30s. Now, there's a very big argument obviously out there that why are these players peaking very early on? Well, that's the scary thing. If they continue along the set trajectory with these key mechanics, they get better and better, and then they do actually peak. Alex de Minaur, who I touched on just briefly earlier, is a prime example, is that he wasn't peaking in his teens, but right now, granted he's still in his mid-20s, he's starting to peak, and I'm going to look for the next 1 to 2 seasons, even 3, he has the potential to peak further by all accounts. So this is really one to watch. Tomljanovic coming back. I think everyone remembers Serena's final match where Tomljanovic obviously came out with the win. But look, winning in 3 against Martic. Martic's a solid player, but this is a good result because given that she's had so much time off, she really has some solid potential. Hovering around the top 30 previously, I think has really been underrated, because when she was at her peak, we had in Australia, obviously, Ash Barty, number 1, winning Grand Slams, but Tomljanovic was actually still on tour when Barty had stepped away prior to ascending to number 1, but when Sam Stosur was on tour. Granted, there was a bit of a obviously age difference in that respect, but she was starting to find her own, I think around that time 80, 70 in the world from memory, and she actually has made an appearance in one of our texts because she really does have the potential with some solid metrics and really can't be ignored. And I think I overheard in one of her press conferences the other day, she was asked if she's always dangerous, or that was her comment, that yes, she is always dangerous, and I'm going to agree with her. She does have the potential to be a real threat. I'm not too sure at this stage if Tomljanovic has the capacity to progress to the quarters and then the semis and go on. I definitely believe round of 16 to quarters she does have that potential, but I want to see more of that maintenance shine through, those the level of consistency, more of those keys. Does she have access to the 7 keys currently implemented into her game? No, that's not the case. Is she privy to a number of them? By all accounts, and that is where her results have been coming from. So I think it's really just a case of moving the marker a little bit, and I can definitely see Tomljanovic progressing to inside the top 20 this season, if obviously she has a stellar season. But really, I think her ability to apply herself and really come out with a win against these type of players, she's really positioned to do that. Next up, I think the spotlight really was on here because in Auckland, Raducanu had a pretty solid event. So I wanted to see if she was able to back that up briefly at the Australian Open or not. Against Shelby Rogers, and look, Rogers is a very solid player. I watched this match and Rogers did not play her best by all accounts. That wasn't the case. The level of consistency was not there, irrespective of her ranking range. When we're looking at the technical parameters associated with that, she wasn't really playing, I'd say, her best game. Credit to Raducanu though, because she stuck in there and she did actually show glimpses of her potential, I'm going to say. Is she at the level and the consistency with those patterns of play that saw her claim the US Open? No, that's not the case. However, her level of consistency, it was, I'm going to say, okay. Good enough to progress through the first round, but I'd love to see her tested. But again, I really want to give Raducanu a chance to really warm up to see how she holds herself in the second round, third round potentially, because by all accounts, she does have the capacity to make that round of 16. And then I think it's a question of, because she hasn't had, I think, that much matches under her belt for some time, to find that groove. If she is able to string together, say that 2, 3, 4 matches consistently, potentially come the end of the year at the US Open, there's a chance she could progress to around a 16, maybe further, but I need to see more. I need to see more of those metrics. Does she have access to those 7 keys? Is she applying them? No, but by no means. However, definitely there are a number of keys incorporated into her game, but we're really looking for that solidification, in a manner of speaking. Rybakina Pliskova. Now, I did a write-up on this, so that's available on our blog. All the links are always obviously left in the bio. Now, Pliskova, we all know, was ranked inside the top 10 for a number of years. I think it's only in the last 1 to 2 seasons she's regressed outside there. And that's just an approximation. I don't have the chart work in front of me. Rybakina was really tested. I almost thought it was going to go to 3, and deservingly so, because this was almost like a quarterfinal lineup, and it was quite, I think, a scary prospect, because even though Rybakina came off her win at the Brisbane International, she was playing on a high, and I almost felt like she had to deliver the same quality of tennis from a finals encounter in the first round, which we've had a couple of lineups like that. And again, recall our previous episode on those days 1 and 2, where I shared that there really were some dark horses, and I think some quite dangerous encounters in this respect. Look, Pliskova, she didn't play bad. 7-6, 6-4, that's a really solid scoreline. Rybakina came through when it really counted. Does Rybakina have the potential to claim her second Grand Slam? Of course she does. She is definitely primed for this. So again, we're looking forward to the next 2, 3, 4 matches and those performances, because this is what really tells us a lot. Irrespective of the data we've got prior, there obviously are a number of players, and I've shared in previous episodes why I'm not elaborating on that and those names, because of ethical reasons that can be compromised or used for other means, etc. So we're sharing this to make sure we know what players are on track. If you want to learn more, obviously the books are there irrespective where you're based in the world. But Rybakina definitely has those prospects, but also why we're not shocked why some players have lost in the first round, which I'm going to get to later. Kruger going down to Zheng. Now, Zheng is the 12th seed. I think she's flying under the radar as well. I think she is the highest ranked Chinese woman since Li Na, from memory. So please correct me, I guess, if I'm wrong. But China's actually doing quite well. Just on today's draw, there have been 3 Chinese women, actually 4, I think, doing quite well. And there have been, even though they've had 2, I think, come through, that's a very solid result. But look, Zhang, I would love to see how she's tracking, how she's progressing, and if she's able to maintain that level of play. Look, Ostapenko against Birrell. I got to give credit to Birrell. She's an Aussie. She is based on the Gold Coast. And to go to a tiebreak with Ostapenko actually was quite solid. The start was a bit, okay, we'll say quiet, but then she was able to find her game very good. But look, when we're talking about metrics, Ostapenko actually finding her rhythm and really being able to play her own game, that's what happened. 6-1 in the second set was no surprise. We all know how Ostapenko has been playing. She is poised to become a barrier breaker this season, even though she regressed quite substantially since I think it was that French Open triumph. She really has been working hard and finding her game again. And look, she's definitely, I'm going to say, in line to become a barrier breaker this season. And it would not shock me if Ostapenko made the quarterfinals. And potentially, if she's able to keep that rhythm up, she's definitely in line for a second Grand Slam title if. And that's a very big if she's able to maintain her current level of play and again string together those high quality performances. So I really want to see her up against another top 10 player, obviously in later rounds, and see how her game either shines through or is pushed back. Bolter against Wan, so another Chinese woman. Look, it was really good of Bolter. 7-5, 7-6, really solid. Could have gone either way. I was predicting that was going to actually go to 3 sets, so that was really solid. Again, I think this is Bolter's time back more consistently over the past season. Hasn't been as consistent from memory. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. So it'd be really good to see if she's able to, again, string those wins together. Sir Stayer going down to Wang. Look, she claimed that first set 6-love, which is, oh my goodness. And then Wang came back, second set 7-5, third set 6-2. And I think that's the irony about Grand Slams. You never know what's going to happen, and you have your patterns of play, you have those rhythms, you have your peaks, and it's really if you can maintain that focus to really get to the finish line or not. And definitely in a match like that, you know when things start slow and then things change. And so it's a bit disappointing for Sostaya, but well done, Wang, another Chinese woman coming through. So I'm really looking forward to see if Wang, or what's coming, I guess, her way in this season, and if she gets on our radar. Blinkova over Buska, relatively straight. I'm not familiar with either player, so I'll keep a close eye on their second, third round matches to see how they're tracking, especially if either one of them comes up against a seeded player in their next round. Burel versus Krunik, very similar in this respect. Burel in 6-4, 6-1. Apologies for, I guess, the mispronunciation. Though, again, not on my radar. Again, let's see Hoop, I think, is up against a seeded player and how they perform, because I really want to see how a player performs under pressure, but more so if they're able to string more than 1 or 2 solid performances together, because again, we're looking at that level of maintenance. And now I'm being really harsh here because of course this is still an exceptional level of play, but when we're able to string those performances together and exhibit a level of maintenance with key technical parameters, then I go, okay, I'm seeing a number of keys here. So let's say 2 or 3 of those 7 keys. And then I'm going to go, okay, what's the likelihood where I can see almost that 4th, 5th, 6th key coming in? Are they trajected then to potentially ascend inside the top 20 and maybe, just maybe inside the next 2-3 seasons, top 10? But if I'm not seeing that, then they get pushed off the radar, because we can only track so many players, because of course there are only 4 Grand Slams a year, and we want to see those players that we know are going to look at joining the 8%, or those who will regress or stay inside that 92%. There's been we've got Torsen winning, we've got Dodin winning. Next one's Azarenka. Oh, this was a good one. Azarenka in 3 against Georgie. Now, look, 6-1 first set, 4-6 then. That was actually really tricky, because when it's 6-3 in the third to Azarenka, again, I thought that could have gone either way. If Azarenka just kept on playing that level of play in that first set, it was done in 2. But Georgie came back. Azarenka started to falter just slightly. So it was really interesting. I would absolutely love to see Azarenka push through to at least a handful of rounds, round of 16 or further. I think we all know she has the capacity to do that. Even though she's seeded 18, Azarenka really should be positioned closer, I'm going to say, to the top 10. Definitely always has that capacity to become a barrier breaker again, though again it's the number that we can see that are strung together. Navarro over Wang. Navarro's been playing good. There's another seeded American there, which is quite solid for them in 3 sets. That was a tricky one. Next up was that quite surprising. It almost. Collins over Kerber in 3. It almost looked like Collins was going to win in 2. Kerber came back in the second, but 6-1 in the third was a little bit brutal. Did Angie play that level of play she was performing at the United Cup? No, that was not the case. So I was a little bit disappointed in that respect, because I thought Kerber played absolutely exceptional in the United Cup. Track back to our episodes around the Brisbane International to the United Cup up for some key snippets there. Collins, though, I got to applaud her, because she actually played quite solid. I don't think either player played at their absolute peak. Kerber definitely did not play the same level that she played at the United Cup. I think it's really going to take her a couple of months to find that rhythm, to get those matches under her belt. And I think, the same was said when touching on Osaka in our previous episode, that there were some really strong points there. But it's just a matter of getting, again, those matches, those high quality, but we want those wins, not just the first rounds, the second and third, just to be able to test yourself, push yourself, ascertain not just the 7 keys, but also the 8th key, to know how to string those matches together, to maintain those peak performances, to implement those key patterns of play to get you over the line when we're looking at, the semi-finals, finals appearances, to walking away with a title. I'm looking forward to see, I think, how Collins progresses, but oh my goodness, today's match against Swiatek, that's one I'm looking forward to. That's a huge test. And talking of that, Swiatek against Kenin, that was tough. I really felt for Kenin, because I was hoping that, 7-6 in the first set, the level of play Kenin was playing, if she was not playing Swiatek, she definitely could have gone through to maybe the 3rd, 4th round potentially. It was actually the best I've seen Kenin play in a while. it was just a tough draw coming up against Swiatek. Swiatek 6-2 in the second set. That's when she started to play similar how she played at the United Cup. And that is why I think it's very exciting how Collins played against Kerber, coming up against Swiatek. We all know Collins can be very dangerous. So Swiatek's second round, I think this has to be one of the toughest draws for Swiatek. It's actually quite brutal with both of these, I think, back-to-back matches. So it's going to be a very good test. But I will leave it at that. Swiatek obviously does have the capacity to go all the way by all accounts. So it's really a matter of her opponents, how they're playing. But if Swiatek can obviously maintain that and go beyond that. And when it obviously comes to Swiatek, I am a very big fan because we have tracked her from whether it was 80 in the world through to predicting with our analytics that she would actually win the French Open. And ever since then, it's been onwards and upwards, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I think another match was a highlight, Stevens versus Gadecki. Now look, Gadecki's an up-and-coming Aussie, and she's still relatively young, but I'll tell you what, watching her 6-3, 6-1, Stevens obviously coming with the win. She actually played quite solid. I don't think the scoreline actually does it justice. Gadecki is going to be, is probably one of the more exciting Australian women's player I've seen for some time that has the potential to progress. And I would not be surprised, providing her team works with her very solidly, and both sides become familiar with the 8 keys over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 seasons. Gadecki has the potential to progress inside the top 50, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's able to maintain course, progresses on a similar track, let's say, to Tomljanovic, and maybe, just maybe, we might have another Aussie inside the top 20 in the years to come. But again, that's getting ahead of ourselves quite a lot because of her current ranking range, for example, and I've only seen her in a handful of matches recently, so the potential is there, but a lot of players have a significant amount of potential. It's what they do with it, and I think that really needs to be rewound and listened to multiple times, please. Stevens, I'm happy. I would love to see Stevens go a little bit deeper. She's had a couple of, I'll say, tough draws, or she hasn't really been able to find her game of how she used to play, I'll say, so the peak performances. But Stevens, obviously having won a Grand Slam, having been inside the top 10 for a number of seasons previously, she definitely has the capacity. Again, it's about putting those wins together. So we do have a number of players that have the capacity to progress towards the top 20, potentially the top 10 once again, but they have progressed outside the top 10. So we're looking at them again, stringing those matches together, finding that level of maintenance, finding those peak performance parameters, and to go from there. Kazatkina, 3 sets, it was very good, and I think we're going to wrap up the women's matches there, and we'll move over to the men's. But before I do that, because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, round 2s for the women's, instead of jumping back and forth, because I almost got sidetracked going, oh my goodness, we actually have 2 days to cover. Look, we've got 2 very big upsets today, which obviously were Jabeur and Sakari on the women's side. They're 2 that I thought were the biggest upsets. I cannot pronounce, I will try. Evan Esyan, my apologies, against Sakari, coming out 6-4, 6-4. Look, when I've been looking at Sakari's metrics, she definitely has the potential to progress, but what this tells me is not just yet. She was actually ranked a little bit higher in the top 10, and she's been ranked inside the top 10 for some time now. Though her level of, I will say, her rate of success in contrast to some other players, is not the same. While she's been inside the top 10, Sabalenka has progressed, Pegula has progressed, Gauff has progressed, Swiatek has progressed, Rybakina has progressed, for example. So it just goes to show that Sakkari has been able to hold her own, though has not progressed further. She definitely can, but this is how I've touched on top 10 players, that there are differences, so key differentials about who can win Grand Slams or will they win Grand Slams, their rate of application, their level of consistency to their maintenance. Having the 7 keys gets you inside the top 10. But that last key, that 8th key, really solidifies whether or not that Grand Slam championship is next in line towards multiple Grand Slam championships. So I would probably go out on a limb here by saying that 8th key is still eludes Sakkari, but she definitely has the potential, and that's, I think, the heartbreaking part, where I see these players, even though they're at the top echelon of play, I know they've got the potential to progress even further. And of course, by all means, that's what we want. Next up, which was a little bit surprising again, was Mertens going down to Kostyuk. 3 sets, and that was tough. 10-6 in the tiebreak in the third. Kostyuk has actually been playing well. Not that I've been tracking her specifically, again, because of, I think, those Grand Slam performances, whether they have obviously have been, verging towards 4th round and onwards. But Mertens, we all know that she has been positioned inside the top 10, and she has been around that caliber previously. And look, being the 25th seed, a little bit surprised that she has fallen in the 2nd round. So it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of the season unfolds. Chizarenko, she's actually played quite well at the Australian Open from memory. So I'm really looking forward to see if she can go a little bit further. Look, when we're looking at Sabalenka, very clean, very solid, 6-3, 6-2. She has arguably been playing very similar to how her season commenced at the Brisbane International. And I think if she can keep up this standard of play, she is definitely primed for a semi-final appearance, towards a final appearance, and potentially defend her Australian Open title. We haven't seen that for some time, so that would be actually quite exciting. Though I would definitely say she has another 2, 3 to 4 players to get through, but I think that's where we're at, depending on how those players perform, and again, that level of maintenance, consistency, those key technical parameters. I think I'm going to leave it to another episode, though, when I'm looking at Sabalenka to, say, a Swiatek to Rybakina to Gauff to Pegula, and if their metrics are similar and or not, because there actually are some key differences that underscore different rates of success. Badosa versus Pavlyuchenkova. Pavlyuchenkova's match against Vekic in the first round, I actually did a write-up on because it was quite interesting. Badosa had a clean first round, so I was actually quite interested to see this one. I thought potentially Pavlyuchenkova was going to walk away with this, but given that Badosa is again coming back from time off, so for her to, I think, walk away 6-2, 6-3, this shows me that first round really did mean business. And so I'm really looking forward to, let's see what she can do in the third round. Because if she is able to keep this level of play, it will not shock me if she makes the round of 16. This is going to be potentially one of her best Grand Slam performances, potentially after that time away. But this could be her season where she really finds that form. That one got her inside the top 10. But we really need to remember that when Badosa did progress inside the top 10, even peaking at number 2, it coincided not with Grand Slam peak performances. It was other performances throughout the season. So we're really looking at the caliber of play a player can bring at a Grand Slam level. Garcia falling to Fretch. This was a bit surprising because Garcia, even though she's regressed outside the top 10, still 16th seed. Fretch though 6-4, 7-6. Granted, Garcia came back in the second. This definitely was a surprise packet, similar to Sakari. So I'm really looking to see once again Garcia finding that form. Potentially she will have a greater rate of success at the French Open than and onwards, because we know she is more than capable of that. But these really underscore the surprise exits, that even though you may have had access to and have been implementing the 7 keys, you are no more. And that's what separates the 8% from the 92%, because sure, you know the 7 keys, but something happens, something changes, that they're no longer being integrated and implemented, even if it is from 7 to 6. That's how drastic and powerful these keys are. And obviously that 8th key is so drastic and powerful to go top 10 Grand Slam champion. It's really exciting, but it allows us to pull these, I think, metrics apart in different ways, shapes and forms to better understand why this happens, but also to help you, whether you are a player or a coach out there, to understand that differential. But also, if you are not a player or coach, and you could be a parent, guardian, or just with a general interest, it's looking at why these results happen. It's not necessarily the fault of a player, because we're looking at how that team works, and that no, it's not the coach being all great and wonderful, or the player being just amazing. It's working together. And again, I've had episodes or shared episodes on this, but also in this body of work, because no player does it alone, but no coach does it alone. There's a distinct reason why one coach could be absolutely phenomenal and achieve really good things with one player, but there's a very big reason why they don't go on to do that with another. And so I really caution listeners out there, if you've been following a coach for some time now, and they are working with a new player, that doesn't mean they're the reason for their success, especially if that player is already ranked inside the top 20, top 10. The hard work's been done. It's really about getting over the line, ascertaining those 7 keys towards that 8th key. And that's a team effort. And that's, I think, a very gross misunderstanding that has been happening of late, because equal merits, coach and player, they work in tandem, and there is no one that is the superstar, in a manner of speaking. Very big misconception that I hope I can share and or spread a bit more awareness on. Haddad Mayer, 6162, she's ranked 10 in the world. It's very underrated, I think, because she did regress outside the top 10. She did become a barrier breaker, and now she's back to becoming a barrier breaker inside the top 10, which is very interesting, because obviously that's what we're denoting by that 2%. If this level of performance can be maintained, because again, she's progressed through to the 3rd round. This is wonderful. I'm looking, can she progress towards a round of 16 and show a level of maintenance privy of those 7 keys, potentially further, but I would say I want to see a bit more of those 4th round appearances or further, and if she's able to string that together, then our data knows what's in store. Golf, 7662, got a little bit of a scare against Dolhide in the second round, but that's a very clean second set. Golf has been playing relatively solid. Parry, walking away with the win. Parks overcoming Fernandez. I was a bit surprised with this one. Fernandez, 32 seed, was playing pretty good in the first round, but look, Parks played solid. She is one of those up-and-coming players out of the States. So again, let's see what's going to happen in the third round. Anisimova coming away with the win in the second round against Podoroska. Very, very good. And I did touch on this in our previous episode, because Anisimova she's had a rough few years, but she definitely has that potential. She was one of those up-and-comers a couple of years ago, and then obviously with personal, I think it was family related, it's really good to see that level of play back. Definitely primed to progress towards top 30, again potentially top 20, but let's see again that level of maintenance, but definitely being flagged as top 20 potentially this season or next season. But again, we all know what those metrics and how they interrelate with that level of maintenance. Krejcikova in 2, she played a lot better than her first round. Hunter over Seigman. Look, a little known fact, well, I hope everyone's aware of this, is that Hunter, being an Aussie, she's in her late 20s, but she has, I think last year, claimed the number 1 ranking in doubles. Exceptional doubles play, has never been a solid or strong singles player, and by that I mean comfortably inside the top 100. So for her to get this win, potentially she may progress inside the top 100, which would be phenomenal for her, given that she is in her late 20s. So as an Aussie, I'm really barracking for her, mainly because she's such a fighter, such a wonderful attitude. Seigman played well, irrespective who she plays next in the third round. I just hope she has fun, because she's achieved such great success even on the Grand Slam level in doubles, and it's always nice to see a doubles player transitioning and doing well in singles. Krejcikova is an example of that. Okay, Andreeva against Jabeur. This was, if you watched it, it was a bit mind-blowing. 6-love first set, 6-2. In those first couple of games in the second set, Jabeur actually started to play a little bit of her game. Did Jabeur play to her potential? Did she play like the number 6 player in the world? She did not. Did Andreeva play like a top 10 tennis player? Almost. I won't say yes, but she definitely has that potential. And obviously as that junior champion, we don't normally see that transition. And we've got episodes on that, on how juniors to seniors on tour very rarely transition to that same level of play. So say top 10 in the juniors to top 10 on seniors, just as an example. So this level of play against Jabeur was second to none. I really want to see how she goes next round, because oh my goodness, give her another 1, 2, 3 seasons, very similar to Gauff, when Gauff arrived very early on a tour, and at 19 years of age, Gauff winning her Grand Slam. So I would not be surprised if Andreeva is capable or able to do this potentially a little bit earlier. It's actually quite dangerous in a very good way. I would just like to encourage her team to handle everything in a very cautious way, and remember that she's only 16, because we want that longevity. We want that 10 years of play towards that second decade of play, and very early on we know we have to manage that quite carefully, as long with that schedule as well. Wozniacki going out in the second round to Timofeeva. First set to Wozniacki played absolutely exceptional. I thought, second set walking away with it. Timofeeva started to find her groove in the second. Loved seeing that. So that was no surprise almost in the third. She does have some really good metrics that I was very interested to see and surprised by. So depending on, I think, her level of play in the next round, she is definitely one to watch in the future. All right, over to the men's side. And today's actually is very in-depth, isn't it? I'd really love to hear your feedback on this. All right, starting off, let's go with Alcaraz. Alcaraz against Gasquet. That first set was a ripper. It was really good to see, I think, a bit of retro Gasquet in there. Alcaraz then in the second and third just found his groove, and Gasquet wasn't able to keep pace. So Alcaraz, I think, definitely obviously has that potential quarters, semi-finals, maybe to make his most strongest appearance at the Australian Open to date. We have to remember that Alcaraz is still relatively young. He has not been on tour for that long. I think this is only his second or third Australian Open, believe it or not, given that he missed last year's Australian Open, off his, I think, best career and being obviously that Grand Slam champion. So this season, I think, is going to be very interesting, especially, I think, the next couple of rounds at the Australian Open for Alcaraz to see what he can bring. Sonego over Evans, a little bit surprised. 4 sets, very tight. Zverev, 4 sets again. He really had to fight for that, but was able to see, I think, that form that got Zverev towards the top 10 to begin with. Why last season he became a barrier breaker again. And I think what is most surprising in a really good way is that Zverev, he's back to number 6 in the world after 18 months off. But let's do a bit of a comparison here, just for a bit of fun. He's progressed, but you've got a lot of women who have taken time off to start families, so time off for very different reasons. And I think we all need to appreciate the demands on a woman's body in this respect, so it's not as easy to come back. It's not like a simple rehabilitation process. And Zverev, I'm just going to use as an example here. So I'm not shocked that he's back inside the top 10, but by any means, he definitely is conscious of those 7 keys. Potentially that 8th key is hovering there. I'm looking at Zverev going to the quarterfinals, to the semi-final appearances at Grand Slams once again. But when it comes to the women's tour, when we're looking at the likes of, say, Azarenka, Kerber, Wozniacki even, although that's a little bit different because she's come out of retirement, Svitolina, there are a number of new mums on tour, but those obviously who were inside the top 10 and being able to find their... Azarenka, I think most forget that she was a mum, and then she did actually find herself in the finals of the US Open again a few years later, which was exceptional. And since then, hovering inside the top 30, around the top 20. Svitolina has climbed her way back up the rankings to be inside the top 20, I believe, at this stage. And she definitely is primed to become a barrier breaker. Osaka, this is her first Grand Slam back, so we really want to see just those matches, that maintenance. Very similar, I think, to Svitolina, although I must say her comeback was very quick. All right, on to the next ones. Kokkinakis, 5 sets. This was actually a bit of a ripper. 1, 2, 3 tie breaks. That's sensational. And then you've got 2 other Offner taking the second set 6-2, and Kokkinakis the fourth 6-1. So there's a little bit of a yo-yo there, but otherwise very solid, very close. That could have gone either way. Next round is going to be tough, recovering after that. Paul in 3 sets, very solid. Shang, that is 5 sets against McDonald. I did not get to see that, but that's another Chinese player. I think this is one of just the males representative here, but it's really good. I think Shang has to be one of the first Chinese male players making it this far. Definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm quite surprised in a very good way to see an increased level of diversity or representation from non-typical tennis nations. It's a very cool to see. Bublik going down to Nagal. This again from India, so it's very, very good, I think, from that perspective. Again, looking at that representation, but a bit surprised. Bublik had been playing quite well. Rune, 4 sets, put on quite a show, but Nishioka in that second set and third was quite solid. So it was actually quite good to see Rune pushed. But so I'm looking forward to see how Rune goes under even more pressure in the later rounds if he's able to maintain his current level of play, especially with a little bit of a change up in his team. Little known fact is that Sven, Roger Federer's former, I'll say long time unofficial coach, has joined his team, and I think that's the first appointment Sven has taken on since then. So it's very interesting, and that's what I want to caution, I think, listeners around, is that there are coaches that really, I think, share a lot on social media and they've done really good things, and those expectations around that coach is the be all and end all. But then you've got the more quieter coaches that are exceptional in their own right, and Sven obviously is one of them, and he's actually his rate of success he's achieved is absolutely phenomenal. And next is obviously Darren Cahill, who was arguably one of the best coaches around. No other active coach surpasses what Cahill has. Remember, he worked with Agassi. Remember, he worked with Hewitt. Remember, he worked with Halep to win her Grand Slams, and now with Sinner. It's very phenomenal. Mortegu just has Serena to his name, for example, when we're looking at top 10 Grand Slam status. Sven, though, Roger Federer, throughout his career, I think Mortegu was responsible or worked with Serena for roughly 10 Grand Slams. Sven was with Federer, I think, for arguably more than 10 of Federer's Grand Slams, which gets very exciting when we're looking at, I think, varying applications. But also Sven helped Wawrinka through that time when he won his, I think it was 2 Grand Slams. I know there's definitely one in there. It could be more, but I'm pretty sure there's 2 or 3, which was very solid. So they're just examples and note of caution when we're looking at players, coaches, being able to replicate results is not a given, but it takes work and time. And that's underscored even more in my new release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, because there are certain key ingredients that are involved. Unfortunately, Mortegu has not been able to replicate that same level of success he obviously was able to do or was afforded to be able to do with Serena, because prior to that was not the case. Sven has been able to replicate with obviously Wawrinka through to Federer. Now you've got Cahill, who has been able to replicate. So there's a couple, but replicating is not a given. That it's very unique, scarce in this respect. and that's for a given reason. If you want to have the tools to be able to replicate or learn how or what some of these coaches are really missing, that's where the data comes in. And obviously the release of how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking, because it's designed and made for both coach and player. I won't dive any more into that because I want to finish these key insights. Line over Kwong, the South Korean, very cool, although that was 4 sets. Dimitrov was pushed to 4. I'm looking forward to see if he's able to maintain this level of play similar to Brisbane. I don't think it was as high, so that's why I'm looking forward to see what the next round has in store. Rudd, 3 sets, very clean. Leheka, apologize for the mispronunciation, 3 sets, solid. Kazorks, 5 sets against Dedi. Very surprising. I'm not very familiar with either, so again, keeping a close eye on if that player can progress a little bit further. The same goes for the 28 seeds, Greikenspor. Again, I hope I've pronounced that somewhat correctly. Was down 2 sets, almost fell in the third to a tiebreak, walked away 6-4, 7-5. Now, if that's not an exciting scoreline, I don't know what is, but you have to love a player coming back from 2 sets down. All credit to him. So again, let's see if I think his recovery is optimal. And again, being inside the top 30, I'm going to expect him to progress to the third round. And if he progresses further, then he will be placed on that radar. Norrie in 3 sets against Verdeles, very solid, 19th seed. Again, I'm keen to see if Norrie can go a little bit further. Zepieri, 4 sets against Lachovic. Very interesting. Again, neither of these players are under the spotlight. Though, again, second, third round will be quite interesting. Phil's against Vaselli, 4 sets, so that's quite a solid win. And to wrap that up, Mickelson against McCabe in 4. So that's actually, I haven't been tracking either players, but Mickelson, I'll be interested to see how he performs in the next round. All right, to wrap I think the second round matches up, we've got Djokovic, Popyrin. Oh my goodness, if you were watching this one, third set tie break, that was a bit of a ripper. I was a bit concerned that Popyrin was going to catch that third and it was going to potentially go to a 5, or Popyrin could have been a surprise packet. And again, as an Australian, he definitely has the tools there, but it was definitely a tough round for him. And I think Djokovic was tested in a very good way. Rublev against Eubanks, this would have been a test for Rublev. 3 sets, very solid. I'm happy for Rublev. He hasn't typically performed at his peak at Grand Slams, but I think he's flying under the radar. We have to remember, he's the 5th seed, so he definitely has that capacity, the potential for that semi-final berth. But I'm looking at that maintenance. 7 keys, are they there? They are there. He has been ranked inside the top 10 for a number of years now, but that 8th key, that rate of success at the Grand Slam level, is it there? Rublev, show me it's there. I think it's been getting closer and closer, but that's one to watch. Korda, good, 3 sets against Hallis. Tsitsipas was pushed against Thompson, 4 sets. That was on the brink of going to 5. It was very close. It was really, I think, impressive in respect from Thompson's game. I really liked what I saw. And Thompson has been able to pull these type of matches out every now and then. Tsitsipas has been tested this tournament. He really has been. I don't think he's found those peak performances or those peak patterns of play yet. If he does, I'm looking forward to it. Though as number 7 in the world, and he is being pushed, he is being tested, I'm going to say he's not quite in his prime yet. Maybe he had a bit of a not so optimal off season. But let's see how that next round goes, if it's a little bit more cleaner. Maybe he's just getting started. That does happen sometimes. Very similar to Djokovic, because Djokovic has lost, I think, of those 2 sets to date now, similar to Tsitsipas. So that could be a very good omen for last year's finalists. Echeverry against Monfils. I was really hoping Monfils was going to pull out a surprise here, but look, number 30th seed Echeverry, it's not surprising, but 4-4-4, that's a close one. I think most tennis fans and players are a big fan of Monfils, and we do hope to see him around for some time. A surprise, TFO going down to Makak, 4-4 with the tie break. That's surprising. I want to see how Makak plays in his next round or in the third round, but a bit disappointing for TFO to fall, especially after, I think, playing quite well at the US Open. So again, he was, I think, inside or on the brink of becoming a barrier breaker last season. He has regressed to 17 in the world, but I would have expected him to make the fourth round, that round of 16 result. So again, this season's going to be a little bit of a challenging one for him as he claws his way back up to those peak performances. But is he capable? Of course he is. Has he lost, I think, track of some of those 7 keys? Definitely. There's a reason why these players regress, because they lose grip of, they forget to continuously implement these keys, and all of a sudden 1, 2 or 3 begin falling by the wayside, and we understand and we know why those rankings regress. Mannarino in 5 sets. Geez, he loves those 5-set matches, but he's very solid. I'm not going to say there's a weapon there. He's just so darn consistent in a really good way. Puts up a solid 5. Mannarino, I wouldn't be surprised if he progresses to the round of 16, especially after that first round win. I mean, 5 sets, still brutal against Muna, but let's see again how he pulls up after this one. Shelton over O'Connell. O'Connell almost took it to 5. That 4th set was so close. Those last couple of games from 5-all were really interesting. I was, no fib of a lie, on the edge of my seat in a really good way. This is, I think, the best I've seen O'Connell play. Another Australian, but Shelton, he really was able to pull it together. So well done for him. And I want to see, I guess, how Ben performs, I think, in the 3rd round, if he's able to bring a more cleaner performance, I'll say. Serendoldo against Maroz Zahan. I'm so sorry for that mispronunciation. 3 sets, so the 22nd seed going down there. Fritz, oh my goodness. In contrast to his first round, did he find his game against Gaston? 6-love, 6-3, 6-1. That's what I'm talking about. If he's able to play this type of tennis, this level, he will become a barrier breaker again. But that first round performance, it was not clean by any stretch. It aligned with why he's regressed. But we're looking for that consistency. We're looking for that level of maintenance. If Fritz can bring it, then we know good things are to come. Kanakov against Kovacevic. 4 sets. My apologies for that mispronunciation. That's solid. We know Kakanakov can progress towards that round of 16. He's done it before from memory. So this is going to be interesting about being able to string together those games, whether he can or not. Mazzetti going down in 5, 6-love in that 5th set against Van Asch. That's quite interesting, actually, because I think Mazzetti was starting to find a little bit of form. An interesting fact is that Mazzetti was tracked for a relative amount of time around when before Sinner was progressing inside the top 20. But Sinner kept tracking, and we know what's happened, number 4 in the world now. But Mazzetti did plateau relatively, he has progressed, but very... It's a contrast in this manner. So he has the potential. Does he have the 7 keys? No. Has he found some of them? Yes. But it's a matter of if he's putting in the work to ascertain and integrate the 7 keys into his game or not if he's going to crack the top 20. I think there's 2 primary matches to sum up, because we've got Baz against Gallen in 4, Kaboli over Kotov, but then Dimonor over Analdi. And I've got a piece written up today about this one. 6-3, 6-love, 6-3. The piece coming out today, which touches on, I think, the match. Good things as far as Analdi is concerned. But look, when we're looking at, I think, the match overall, Dimonor, he's started to find, I think, his groove in a really good way. And that's, I think, what we've been talking about and what we like to see. Look, the next match up, the one I'm going to finish on, is Sinner. 2-2 against De Jong. This was really good. I'm really happy for him. Sinner's definitely a dark horse. He's flying under the radar because I think Alcaraz and Djokovic are taking the spotlight. So I'm very interested again to see this, because it's very clean. He's been playing very well. And look, at the end of the day, if you're looking at progressing towards a top 10 tennis ranking, claiming that maiden Grand Slam championship, these are the metrics we need to talk about to progress you not only towards that ranking range, but we're looking at the maiden Grand Slam of the season, who's going to walk away with the title, and how, I think, exciting the metrics unveiled in how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking is and are, and how they really form that pathway to crown the next champion of the 2024 Australian Open. Thank you so much for listening. Look, I really hope you enjoyed the wrap-up of day 3 and 4 of the 2024 Australian Open. And I hope, with especially some of those matches, you have been on the edge of your seat. Look, to grab your copy of The Secrets to Optimal Coaching Success, the book we have been focusing on prior to these bonus episodes, head on over to AMA International. To grab your copy of my new release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, you can also find it on AMA International or Amazon, irrespective where you're based in the world, or where you're listening from. For any comments or questions, head to AMA or Topic Thread, the social platform set on data privacy. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, head on over to Twitter, Threads or Instagram. To catch up on our weekly coaching tips, head on over to TikTok. And to catch up on our blogs, head on over to AMA International and look for our blog tab, or head on over to Medium. And as always, I'll leave all the links in the episode notes. For something different, head on over to Pink Octopus Books, where my fictional release is. To view this week's question and poll, be sure to visit Spotify, or for something left of field, visit Sprout for some random polls. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above would be absolutely phenomenal. For those of you who are interested, we do have scholarships available on AMA International, as well as options to work with me exclusively to optimize your performance to nudge you close towards that top 10 tennis ranking, especially if you are vying for that barrier breaker berth, or even more so, securing your maiden Grand Slam title. It doesn't get any more exciting than that. So don't be shy, come and say hi. On that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I am your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.